evangelist whose profession is also in social work, Tameka Douglas. How are you ladies doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And again, thank you for coming into the show. Uh,
More
as we
than
said,
welcome.
thank you. As we said, we have senior health physicist Janet Daniels Brown here with us today, and she has been in the field for 14 years as a radiation protection. She's a graduate of Pinecrest High School in Southern Pines, North Carolina, and also the Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. She's a mother of two, a grandmother of 5 children, which 2 of them are bonus grandchildren. And Miss Brown is also a divorcee and a veteran of the United States Army. I just want to give you a house applause, Miss Brown, on all that you do. Now, health physicist, let me tell you something. I had trouble when writing my notes, writing the word physicist. I couldn't get it right for anything. But health physicists deal with the science of radiation. Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
All right. And it has many benefits, but also there are potential hazards. And Janet, did you major at Shaw University knowing that you were going to get into this field, or how did this come about for you?
I absolutely did not. I graduated from Shaw University with a BA degree in psychology.
Oh, okay.
The radiation protection came along later on through a relative.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I had no knowledge of this industry until I heard about it through this particular relative at the time. And I thought it was interesting, and the biggest attraction was the money.
Okay.
No doubt, it was the money. And I said, "Whoa, that is nice." So it took me about 2 years to finally get in, but sticking earnestly to it, I did, and I'm sorry, took the proper training and everything that was, required of me, and was able to be successful in that, and been doing it ever since.
All right. Now let's go back to the relative, or that era of time when you were discussing this with your relative. Now, had you just come out of college? Were you still in college, or were you in the military?
No.
Okay.
Neither.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually was working as a community support specialist when I heard about it. And the company that I was working for was actually in the process of going out of business.
Oh, okay.
So I had already been interested in, this field when I heard about it. And I had to take on another job. And then I was working also as the education director for the Wade County Boys and Girls Club up on Raleigh Boulevard. And so when the opportunity came, I had to just, keep calling, because it's not an industry you'll see advertised like you do on the want ads, And so when I got the word that, hey, September 20th, this is where we're going to send you to, and this and that, I jumped on it with both feet. I gave a 3-day notice. Didn't have time for 2 weeks. And basically, as the kids say, I was out.
All right. Now, why isn't this a profession that you see advertised as much?
For one, it's not something that you actually need a college degree for.
Okay.
But the money that you can make in this industry is more than a lot of college grads make, and people that would never have the chance to go to college. So it's, for lack of a better word, lack of a better phrase, it's more like a dog eat world. And it's everybody trying to, keep that, if you get that position, keep that door open for their family members, for their kids, because when I tell you it's a lucrative industry, it's a lucrative industry.
Right. So when I was looking, researching this, I saw where salary potential is up to $150,000 a year. Is that about right?
That's so below.
So below. Okay. All right.
There are areas, that makes way more than that.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to tell us more about these areas, but could you tell us what are some of the other rewarding benefits as a health physicist other than salary?
Well, for one, the job is very exciting
Mm-hmm.
because you're dealing in radiation protection. And with our position, we are basically, as we used to say in the Army would have, when they're going out into the field and you're going on a dangerous mission, you always have point men.
Mm-hmm.
Point man is not the happiest position to be in because you're the person that's sticking out front, excuse me, and taking the chance on finding the dangers out there if there were like clay mines or something buried under the ground
Mm-hmm.
to warn everybody else. And it may be in a way of where you actually step on one and you blow up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, now we know we can't walk there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
kind of like what radiation protection is.
Right.
We go into the different areas in the plants as we travel from nuclear plants to nuclear plants. And certain areas in the plants, due to the high, levels of radiation, we have to take our instruments out and we go and we find these areas. Then we measure it and then we take it back and we let everybody know what we found. So that when it comes time for a group to go into that area to work, then we have to tell them how they have to dress, how long they can be there, what they can take with them, who's qualified, who's not. Um, Basically, any job that's going on in a radiological controlled area, no one can go into it without coming through radiation protection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we are, like I said, we're their point men, we're their leaders, we're their protectors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's lots and lots of training. There's always training. 14 years, and every time I go to a different nuclear plant, I'm going into training like it's my first time.
Wow. Now, when I was looking this up, there was what we call, is it medical metaphysicist, medical physicist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know anything about that area, or is that connected with what you do?
I've heard of that, but that's
Okay.
not connected with what we do.
Okay. All right.
We're basically in the nuclear plants,
Uh-huh. Okay.
and that's one of the most rewarding things for me is because I get to go a lot of places, go into these different plants. These plants are everywhere because everybody needs electricity.
Mm-hmm.
We deal with the reactor head, the portion of it that creates the electricity,
Mm-hmm.
which is very dangerous
Mm-hmm.
if it's not treated right. And that's one of the biggest things because I love to travel.
Uh-huh.
So I get to go in these places and I'm being paid for it. And I get to, enjoy the sights and this and that. And then get to meet a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
And so that's probably one of the most rewarding, and I make a good salary.
Awesome. I'm going to give you what I call a house applause. What we call a house applause here. That is exciting and dangerous. I'm reminded of a story and a documentary I heard or watched some time ago. A gentleman by the name of Vertus Hardiman. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with who he is?
I'm not.
Okay. He was a young man. He was a young boy when he was selected among a group of other young children in the 1920s. I think it was the year 1928. Mm-hmm. And it was under a secret U.S. government experiment, mm-hmm. which back in that time, the government was known for doing these type of experiments under or with African Americans, mm-hmm. under a bogus reason for doing it.
Right.
And this gentleman, Vertus Hardiman, he was selected to be one to be in this experiment with radiation to mm-hmm. cure a type of fungus on the head, scalp mm-hmm. fungus, I think. And, somebody accidentally gave him too much radiation, mm-hmm. which caused necrosis, chronic necrosis, and progressive necrosis for him of the scalp to where it left a hole in his head. Wow. And he lived with that for many, many years. He wore a hat on his head to cover what was there, which was that hole in that awful site that we saw on his body.
Right.
But when looking up what you do and seeing how dangerous it is,
Mm-hmm.
I thought of this gentleman and went back to look for more information about him, and how protection comes in for you guys and what you do. So again, thank you for taking on something that serious, and risking your life. Can you tell us some of the other risks that are involved with radiation?
Sure. Well, one of the risks, I've actually, cancer is one of the risks that you take when working in radiation.
Hmm.
Although, and I stress this to anyone that's working or has, you know, a feel to want to do this, safety is our number one thing.
Hmm.
That's the first thing they talk about when we get to our sites, and ways that we can stay safe to keep everybody abreast. Because if not, then you are in high potential of, you know, exposing yourself to where you would be taking in high doses of radiation that could cause cancer. Also, um, other things can happen to you, you know, physically,
Hmm.
you know, and so um, there's like so many different things that can happen. Like we've had people to, because you're going into different areas of the plant. Sometimes you're climbing up ladders. Sometimes you're going across beams. Sometimes you're over a pool
Hmm.
because that the water is a shield, and so lots of the high radiological equipment is kept underwater to shield it so that it doesn't escape out. And you know, there's just like there's so many different things, that so many different dangers, and so we, like I said, make sure that we have people trained
Hmm.
in those areas to teach everybody, you know, and to reiterate the importance of being safe.
Hmm.
You know, even all the way down to how we dress. You know, one of my main uniforms are those yellow PCs. I hate the way they look, but I'm not moving without them.
And what does PC stand for?
personal personal protection clothing.
Okay.
It's part of our PPE, our personal protection equipment,
Uh-huh.
and those personal protection clothing we wear, um, are made out of a special material that will, you know, shield us. And we wear boots and gloves. And when it comes time to do what's called an outage, where we shut down the reactor or unit in a plant to maintenance and clean. I'm sure everybody's heard of Chernobyl,
Yes.
and there is actually a there was a special out last month about Chernobyl.
Hmm.
I actually watched it because I wanted to know more of the history of what happened with that, and it actually was in the beginning stages of, you know, the nuclear power plants, and they did not have all the knowledge that they needed of it when Chernobyl happened.
Wow.
So I was able to see firsthand on the real effects. So these guys were trying to clean this mess, and it's nothing you can see, nothing you can smell, which really makes it dangerous.
Mm.
And so they were there working, and in there for, I think it was about a time span of 3 hours.
Hmm.
And when they came out, there were several of these men, and all of a sudden their skin was very blotchy. The radiation had gotten inside and started eating at their organs
Wow.
because it attacks the cells.
Hmm.
So the younger a person is, the more susceptible they are to their cells being attacked. An elderly person of 80 would do way better in an area like that than a newborn or a pregnant lady.
Wow. That's
Because of,
interesting.
yeah. And
Mm.
so yeah, we stress that. We stress safety to the utmost.
Hmm.
You know, sometimes there's areas where you have to go and you even have to wear a respirator. All of the time, anytime we're doing the cleaning and maintenance of a reactor,
Hmm.
everybody's in respirators.
Wow.
2 to 3 pairs of PCs and plastics. 2 to 3 pairs of rubber boots, gloves, taped, everything. And then you go down 20, 30 feet in the hole and where the reactor is and for your maintenance and your cleaning and everything.
Wow. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Chat City with P. Ross on WRLY WRLY 93.5 FM, Raleigh, North Carolina. This is Chat City with P. Ross. I am your host, P. Ross, and I have in the studio with me today Janet Brown, who is a senior health physicist, and the evangelist Tameka Douglas, who is also a social worker, and we'll be talking about human trafficking later on. All right, Miss Brown, Miss Brown. All right, so when you leave work, at the end of your shift, you take off all of your protective gear. What happens to that protective gear? Do you reuse it? Is it cleaned, or what happens with that?
We have special designated areas to put this stuff, and then we send it into a hazmat trailer, and then we have a crew that will take that and do their specialized laundry of it and then return it to us. We don't do that ourselves.
Okay. Wow.
And then they return it to us, and then we have people that will place it where it needs to be and have it ready for the next group that needs to come in for it.
Now, if you're exposed to radiation over a period of time, don't you have to have, even though you have your protective gears and things like that, protective equipment and all that, do you have to go in and get some type of physical exam just to make sure you don't have certain radiation levels in your body or anything like that after a certain period of time?
Well, here's the deal. So when we are going in these areas, we're already wearing monitors that are measuring the amount of dose that we're picking up while we're there.
Okay.
And so we're allowed up to what's called 2,000 DAC, 2,000 derivatives of radiation a year. So we have what's called EDs, and they will read and pick up and let you know how much you're picking up so that you can keep up. And we also have people in place that works in dosimetry, which is the name of the equipment that we're using. And it will, our teledose and our, like I said, our EDs and everything, they pick it up. One will read the immediate amount. The second one, the TLD, the teledose, will keep track of everything that you pick up in different areas and over a long range. So you'll wear your ED every time you go into the radiological controlled area. And it will tell you, well, I picked up 3 millirems of dose this time. I might pick up 8 millirems of dose the next time. And then I'll go to the next plant. Well, then I can go to dosimetry and look at my record and see the total amount. The total amount that I picked up, because the teledose will keep track of everything and report it back. And so it may be a thing where, and there are some plants where it's a lot more, I don't want to use the word dirty, but there's more, you're exposed to more radiation in some plants than you are in others. And so you may pick up 383 millirems at this plant where you may not pick up but 2 at this plant. You know what I'm saying? And so the whole time it's keeping up, the teledose is keeping up and keeping track. Because like I said, no one is allowed to go over 2,000. So if you start getting close to that 2,000, and we are a private contractor, so we pick and choose the places that we want to go, which gives you great flexibility, and I love that because we don't have to take jobs if we don't want to, But as I was saying about the teledose, we get our report, and it's, if you see yourself starting getting close and you got another job, then you might want to pull back and work in a clean area or an area that's not giving off dose, so that you can work the next plant and do your job. Or if you reach it, sometimes you can get to a supervisor, but you got to go through a lot of red tape and paperwork to get someone to sign off where you can go beyond the 2,000, which most of the time that's not recommended.
Wow.
Okay. And it's not recommended, but there's some people that are qualified way more than others to work in certain areas, and they sometimes are given that.
Now, how does your family feel about you being in this profession with the dangers that it entails?
Well, I've explained it to them and illustrated you know, to them so that they could understand. And my daughter works with me.
Oh,
My
okay.
son-in-law is in the business. And like I said, it's a great opportunity,
Uh-huh.
especially for people that that are not college oriented.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? That can
Yes.
still make a really good living and not have to have a degree.
Yes.
And so I try to help whoever I can,
Uh-huh.
especially family.
Uh-huh.
Because it's a great opportunity to really set. It's a good career,
Yes.
and it can really set your life on track.
Awesome. Now, Janet, what are some of the other subspecialties in this field?
Um, there's different specialties. It's almost like a little family,
Mm-hmm.
like a body.
Mm-hmm.
The arm can't work without the legs, the heart can't work without the brain, and this and that. Well, it's the same thing here. We have radiation protection, but we also have the workers. We have the deconners, the decontamination techs. That's the people that do most of the cleaning
Mm-hmm.
and of these areas to keep the debris down, because you cannot get any type of debris in these and compromise these components and these systems.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the valve guys that's working on the valves. You got the maintenance guys that works on the equipment. You have the engineers. You have the planners. There's like so many different fields in this. You know, you have the supervisors, lots of supervisor positions. You have the shift workers that stay on shift all the time. It always has to be someone there.
Mm-hmm.
Always has to be someone there that's watching the control room, to make sure that everything is running smoothly. You have the insulators, you have the painters, all these different areas. All of them are needed, in
Yes.
these areas. And so it all works together, you
Okay.
know.
Okay. All right. Now, you mentioned travel. You travel a lot, and I guess you just mentioned that a couple of your immediate family members are in this business with you.
Hmm.
So, what are holidays like for you guys? If you're all traveling, do you make special time to get together, or does work tend to not be so beneficial for you when it comes to special days and moments in your lives?
So, fortunately for us,
Uh huh.
most of the time, we're not working during
Oh,
holidays.
good.
So, like this run I'm getting ready to do, I leave Sunday for.
Mm-hmm.
I'll return or right before Thanksgiving, or, a little, probably like the second week of November. I won't go back to work until January or
Okay.
possibly February.
Uh huh.
Most of the time, we don't work in the summer because of the heat. The radiation there, it creates a lot of heat.
Mm-hmm.
So and heat stress is one of the main things that we deal with in this industry. So for most of the time, there will be no outages planned during the months of June, July, August. So most everybody is off June, July, August.
Wow. Okay.
Unfortunately,
Okay.
lately there's been a lot of trouble at a lot of the places, where there's been extra work and different projects going on and people building new units and stuff. So people have been working.
Mm-hmm.
But on an average, for the most part, you're not working June, July, and August. So you got those 3 months off, and it's optional.
Uh-huh.
And you're not working the latter part of November, hardly any of December, and maybe the first week or two of January.
Okay.
And you're still able to make a really good living.
Wow, that's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Janet, I'm just going through my notes here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry because you answered a lot of the questions I had for you already, which is
Okay.
good. That's good. It's okay. Um, so tell us for you. I know you have, you mentioned salary and everything. Is has been one of the rewarding things of your job.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us one of your most special or memorable moments that you have as a senior health
RP? Yeah.
physicist?
Um, Honestly, I think one of my most favorite was Louisiana.
Okay.
They have some of the best food in Louisiana. They do. We were actually working in Georgia,
Uh huh.
and the other company, didn't have enough RPs to fulfill their contract. So they called on our company and they needed volunteers, and I volunteered.
Mhm.
And so they said, hey, on your break between this one and this one, could you go to, what was it, Riverbend in St. Francisville,
Mhm.
which is 30 minutes outside of Baton Rouge. So I said, sure, I'll go. I've never been.
Uh-huh.
I'll work it.
Uh-huh.
What's the package? Well, they're going to pay your hotel. They're going to pay, you keep your per diem
Uh-huh.
because they do pay us per diem to live on. So you get to keep your per diem.
Mhm.
They're going to pay for your room. They're going to pay for your food, all of your food. They're going to do your laundry. And the only thing you'll pay for is your gas to go back and forth to work. Sweet deal. I'll
Yes.
take it.
Yes.
And I got there and I was able to see Baton Rouge. I spent the day, one of my days off, and went to New Orleans, which I love, and just enjoyed the sights and enjoyed the food, the restaurants. It was magnificent. So a lot of times I'll post some stuff,
Mhm.
but I was posting left and right from Baton Rouge. I
Uh-huh.
usually try to kind of stay low and, just post funny stuff and encouraging stuff on Facebook. But I know everybody saw those food dishes. It
Yeah.
was amazing.
I
It
had
was
friends from
amazing.
Louisiana, and one was a neighbor, and we're still good friends to this day. I haven't seen her in many years, but
Uh-huh.
we used to live across from each other in apartment buildings in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and she used to make some interesting dishes. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, with foods that I wouldn't have dared dream to have made, like with
Honey.
turkey necks and stuff like that, but they would be so
Yes.
delicious.
Yes. That was one of the things.
Yeah,
There
so
was a restaurant there.
we're going to give a house of applause to Louisiana and all their great dishes.
Yes. Because
Yes.
those turkey necks was one of the things that I fell in love. I didn't know you could cook turkey necks like
I
that.
know, right?
They were off the chain, as they would say. And I
Yes.
enjoyed it so much. And I tried alligator for the first time
Ooh,
there.
alligator.
Oh wow.
I don't know if I would try
Yes,
alligator.
black and alligator, but it was good. It was. I couldn't do the frog legs. Looked like the frog was still trying to jump.
Yeah, I
Couldn't,
can't
couldn't
mess with
work with
frog
that one.
legs.
But the alligator was good.
You're listening to Chat City with P. Ross. I am your host, P. Ross, and we are on Oak 93.5 FM WRLY Raleigh. In the house with me today, I have senior health physicist Janet Brown, who we've been chatting with. And we also have our evangelist, who will be here each Thursday, third Thursday of the month, Tameka Douglas. She's also a social worker. And we'll be discussing human trafficking with her a little later on in the show. Janet, we mentioned early on that you were also in the U.S. Army,
Mm-hmm.
and as we know, women have been in the U.S. Army since the Revolutionary War, so it's
Mm-hmm.
been quite some time, and they make up 16% of the total force,
Mm-hmm.
with a number that lands about 75,000 women as of 2020 in my research.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say thank you for your time
Thank
serving this country, for this
you. Yeah.
country. Yes. And so here's my question to you. Why did you enlist in the U.S. Army?
Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I enlisted because at the time I was living with my dad in New York,
Uh-huh.
and I was around my cousins, and my auntie, with her beautiful self, had 7 kids, and I think there were at least 4 to 5 of them that had enlisted,
Mm-hmm.
and I was following my family.
Okay. All right. How long did you stay in?
I did 3 years. I
Okay.
decided that wasn't the life for me.
Okay. And
So
what what was your specialty in the
I
U.S.
was a
Army?
91C, which was it was the equivalent of an LPN outside in the real world.
Okay. Now, I've heard a female say once that a woman has no place in the military. It's a man's world. What's your response to that?
My response is I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Women have a great place in the military. We're very needed in the military.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's, I mean, I'm not one. with the women can do everything men can do. No, I can't. That is not me.
Uh-huh.
I can't. I'm not fixing cars. I'm not one for the cutting of the grass. I'll do if I have to,
Uh-huh.
but no, that's not really my thing. But I know that we are great helps, and I know that we are very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Women are very innovative. Women are very forward going, and yeah, I feel like we attribute just as much to the military as men do in our areas.
All right. And I just want to give a house applause to all our women who are serving or have served in the military. All right. We're going to change pages here and discuss human trafficking. Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide. Here in the U.S., I didn't pay attention into human trafficking until I watched the movie Crash some years ago. And this movie starred John Cheadle and some other famous actors in there. And in this movie, there was this white van that was shown throughout the movie, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time the end of the movie came about, you found that in that white van was several Asian descended folks
Mm-hmm.
who were being human trafficked. I don't know if I said that correctly. help me with that, Evangelist. But yeah, so human trafficking is something very real. And how do we get to this, Evangelist Douglas?
First of all, thank you again for having me here. It is a delight to be back here on the station, P. Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is such a needed topic of discussion.
Hold on just a moment. I'm sorry. For some reason, I'm not hearing you clearly. Let's see what we got going on here.
Yes. Hello, hello, hello. Hear me?
Give us just a moment. We're experiencing technical difficulties. We have evangelist, social worker, Tameka Douglas with us today. We are discussing human trafficking in this portion of the show. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Give us just a moment. All right, Tameka, say testing 1, 2, 3, please.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
Okay. All right. We're back and in full swing.
Right.
So I asked the question, how did we get to trafficking, human trafficking, Tameka?
Well, first, as I mentioned, I'm glad to be back here on today, and I think this is a wonderful and necessary topic of discussion. When you ask the question how we got here, one of the things I want to definitely mention is that human trafficking is a billion-dollar industry, so it makes money for people, and that's one of the reasons why it is such an issue that we're dealing with not only here in North Carolina but in other states and other countries. It's just a very prevalent issue, and it makes money. It is getting people rich. It is helping them send children to college. It is helping them live the lifestyle that they want to live, and unfortunately that is a very selfish way to think about it when you think about the devastation that it brings to the life of the victims who are trafficked. But that is why we're here today. And I think another reason why, or how we got here, is lack of knowledge. As I mentioned, I think it's a necessary discussion. Not only when it comes to just us talking about it on the radio, I think it needs to be discussed in our churches, in our communities, in homes. Parents certainly have a part to play in it. In our schools, educating the children on what the effects are and the dangers of human trafficking and some of the tactics that these individuals use who are able to enslave, because that is what it is, it's enslavement, enslave our boys and girls and even women. There are women who have certainly been victims of human trafficking and are yet victims of human trafficking even to this day.
You know what is surprising to me? Now, we normally hear of women and children being abducted. But what's surprising to me is that we find that men are human trafficked. I can't say that properly, but they are victims as well.
Absolutely.
And I see women, if somebody was going to target them, I would see women and children being looked at as weak or whatever, but not men. So what's the usage of men in this thing here?
Great question. Oftentimes we see it in men who may be trying to come over from another country and they don't have legal rights to be here, for instance. And so in many cases, it happens in situations like that. Sometimes, but not in all cases, when individuals are indigent, you have men, just like I know that many times when we think about prostitution, a lot of times people look at women as being prostitutes, but you have males that are also prostitutes. So in some cases, it is men who are trying to get money or thinking they're going to get money, through selling their bodies or for working with someone else. So for them, like I said, in many cases, it's either when they're trying to come over illegally and somehow they're coerced, in that way, or when they're simply in prostitution rings. So absolutely, you made a great point in that it's not just women, it's also men and boys who are also trafficked.
Okay, now Charlotte, North Carolina, which we're in North Carolina, but Charlotte, North Carolina is listed as one of the hot spots for human trafficking, according to the National Human Trafficking Resource Center. Do you know why that is?
Well, Charlotte, for one, is one of our larger cities, of course, and it is looked at as a big money maker, wherein a lot of times women are brought from other cities sometimes, believe it or not, that are larger, like Atlanta, DC, and taken to Charlotte because it is seemingly one of the places where they're making a lot of money off of women who they are prostituting. So that's one of the reasons why, and of course, North Carolina in general is just so we're one of the highest number of cases because of, for one, the number of military bases we have here, our highways, 95, you can 95 north, 95 south. So we have all the major highways here that we can access. The number of colleges that we have here, because as we know, college students are a big target for human trafficking, as is high school students and in our other schools as well. So I would say that Charlotte is just one of the areas that they seem to target because they're making a lot of money. But North Carolina in general is a hub. And what I mean by that is that this area is North Carolina is very prevalent for human trafficking because of, as I aforementioned, our military bases are here, the major highways where it's easy in, easy out for North Carolina. So we are certainly one of the main areas.
Wow. Okay, so military bases. So I don't want to put a blemish on our military, but what does the military have to do with? I mean, are our men and women in the military using these victims, for their personal pleasures?
It just like any other career or organization, and certainly we don't want to put a blemish there, but there have been cases where not necessarily our men and women who are in the military have been victims of this, but we have had some military personnel who have been involved in the human trafficking rings and stings.
Okay. Is it usual? Or
not usual. It's just certainly a risk. And because of, like, of course, I stated that we have so many bases here, so it makes it wherein the numbers are larger here because of our the number of military bases that we have. But it's not something we hear, thankfully, of all the time, or we hear of a lot where in military personnel are being caught up in these things. It's not something that we hear of a lot, but it's certainly not unheard.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask, is it usual that these victims do we hear of murders when it comes to human trafficking? Are these victims murdered at any point in time, or are they just strictly used for just against their will?
Absolutely. We have individual cases where women have been murdered, beaten severely bad, but that is certainly one of the greater risk is murder. We have had situations where people have been involved in human trafficking and inevitably they ended up murdered.
How is this exposed, Evangelist? I mean,
I,
when did this come to the light? Seem like I'm sure it's been going on for a while, but now I think it's getting more attention than before.
I think that it's just we're now getting to a point where information is getting out there. So we're hearing more about these cases, whether it is on the news. We're seeing more documentaries now. And so people are reporting it. And that's why I said this particular topic is so prevalent that you would talk about it. I want it discussed today because as we get the word out, as we educate people on what human trafficking is and what the risks are, how to keep others safe from it, then it just helps to get the information out there. And so I think we're able to bring it to light now because more people are aware that it's not just happening in other countries, but it's happening right here in our countries and within the United States and locally. I mean, it's all around us, and that's why I often tell people, you never know if it's next door. You know, we all have to kind of be mindful and observant as to what's going on. So I think that's why it's being brought to the light now because people are just more mindful of it and kind of know how to pay attention.
Okay, I've noticed some posters in a few hotels that I've been in about assistance for those who may be victims and in the hotel. What do you do to not become a victim?
To not become a victim, watching your surroundings, knowing, some of these tactics, and we wouldn't be able to go into all of them today, but some of the tactics that are used, and it's not, sometimes people would think, okay, it's just the men who may walk up to the young lady and try to coerce her, or, oh, you look beautiful today, or can I buy you this, can I buy you a drink? Oftentimes, these particular human trafficking rings are using women to do that job for them. So, they may have a woman to go onto the college campus and say, hey, you're beautiful. You may be interested in modeling. Have you ever thought about modeling? And give her card, and then she calls and, well, I need to meet you here so you can take pictures. And so, that's one of the ways that it kind of starts. I think in being mindful that it's not just a situation where a man may walk up to you and try to get you to get in the car with him or sneak up on you or something like that. It also can happen with women. I mean, they're using, or even with other youth on college campuses. There have been cases wherein there are students that another student used and coerced into getting into that particular business. So it's so many different things that you have to look at when we think about human trafficking. So knowledge is power. So just being mindful of the different ways. And sometimes, we all heard about the vans with the tinted windows. And so that kind of put people in the mindset, oh, it's just the person that's riding by in the van in the neighborhoods. And I'm like, no, that's not just it. And they do, of course, I'm sure still use vans. However, you may see somebody driving just a Camry or an Escalade, and it could be very well someone that's targeting young girls or young boys to involve or to bring them into human trafficking. So just being aware and thinking outside of the box and not just thinking it's just that person that you see riding by in a van or that strange man that you haven't seen on your college campus or at the football games before, because they're doing that. They're going to the games. And so there's so many different avenues that these people are using. So being mindful of what's going on, I think, is a way to protect yourself from it.
Okay, that's really good. Have you had any contact with a victim to speak to them about their experiences?
I have. In trainings before, I've spoken with victims who have been involved in human trafficking and has been made to have sex with many men, and in some cases women. Women that have been forced to have sex with men and other women. So yes, ma'am, I have in fact dealt with victims.
Wow. How about culprits of this crime?
Never a culprit that I'm aware of. I haven't that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. What's being done by law enforcement to help stop human trafficking, Evangelist?
One of the things that law enforcement is doing is being available. I mean, what I often tell people when I teach classes or do these kind of trainings is 911 is your friend. Don't try to approach a vehicle. Don't try to approach somebody that you feel may be coercing a young girl or a young boy. Call 911. And then there is the hotline for human trafficking as well. And I'll gladly pass that information along as well. But the police is certainly, they're aware of what's going on. You have, I know that Raleigh Police Department has areas where in there they'll go out and get classes on it, pass out information. So they are definitely involved in that they're responding to this. And it's not a situation. And I think that it's better to be safe than sorry, because sometimes we may think, well, maybe I'm wrong, or I shouldn't call 911, or I shouldn't call the human trafficking hotline, because that may not be what's going on. It may be what's going on. So even if it comes to you calling the Raleigh Police, and I'm just speaking from Raleigh because it's this area, but you call the police department and they go out there and it's nothing going on, they're not going to be mad, because they want to make sure that they're bringing these men and women to justice as well, and that they're helping these young ladies and these young boys or women and men to be captured from this particular business as well. So they are certainly involved in educating and also responding when necessary.
Okay, that's good to know. What happens, or what if a person that, what happens when a person consents to human trafficking? What do you say about their mindset?
Oftentimes these individuals don't know that they're consenting to that. In many cases, what we find when people are victims of human trafficking, they're lured in. It could be that person that's in college and they go away to college, they don't have a lot of supports and resources from home. So they're that struggling college student that's just glad to be there. They're working, still not able to make ends meet. So perhaps they meet somebody at a mall, or they're working in a restaurant, and then this guy says, I can help you, or, I know you're trying to get through school. Let me help you meet that goal. So, and he begins to buy her things and begins to show her love, or you get that person. And a lot of times individuals who are targeted are those who may seem to not have much confidence in themselves in some cases, haven't been shown love, don't know what it's like to be loved. And so they get that from that person is trying to lure them into human trafficking. And so they began to show them love, and they think that person really cares about them. So many cases, it's not, I wouldn't say consensual, it's that they're lured into it. Now, you do have some cases where people think that perhaps they're working for a pimp or something, and they're, going to get a certain amount of money, or they have sex with somebody and they're going to get the money that they think that that person's paying, and then they find out that no, you're enslaved, and so you're going to be forced to do it, and you're not going to get the money. So in most cases than none, it's more so where people are lured or even forced into it. Like when I talked about how when sometimes these younger children, they meet somebody and they think that it's a modeling agency or it's a job, and so they get there and find out that no, you've been kidnapped and you're going to be in enslavement, and you're going to be forced to do something. And we're talking about human trafficking, but of course, so there are also labor trafficking rings out there as well. But in this case, in many cases, they're getting there where they've been kidnapped and they're forced there against their will to do things like have sex and with different people and all of that. So more times it's a situation where they don't know what they're getting themselves into. Wow.
Can you give us any other information that you think our audience may need to know concerning human trafficking? And then after that, do you mind giving us the hotline for human trafficking?
Absolutely. So I think, again, just making sure that you're paying attention, watching your surroundings. And I know we when we think about it, we tend to think it's just the teenage girls or young children. It's grown women. So even myself, when I go to the store or I'm coming out in the parking lot, so whether it's nighttime or in the evening, my head is on a swivel. I'm watching the car beside me. Yes. I'm watching who's behind me, because just like little 16-year-old Sally may be someone that they would look to target, they also are targeting women. We've got situations going on now where people are using something simple as putting something on your windshield, and they're putting powder or fragrances that's making people fall out. And we had a situation not long ago that I was talking to my colleague about, where a woman, I think it was something on her doorknob, it may be a piece of tissue, and she grabbed it, and thankfully she was in the car. Her husband was in the car as well, so she gets in the car and she begins to become lethargic and almost passing out. And so that those kind of scenarios is what's taking place when it comes to human trafficking or kidnapping in general, where they're using tactics like that. So it's not just what I mentioned about the just simple mall stuff or in the community where you see this strange car going through the community and they're looking at the little girls, or they're riding by bus stops so they can snatch kids. It's other tactics that they're using. People are taking time, because it's a billion-dollar industry. They sit and they come up with these scenarios as a way to get people, or to capture people, kidnap people. So it may be something as simple as you taking something off your windshield that has some kind of powder that can get in. Again, Janet talked about like the radiation protection and all that, but we know that things get medicine and things like that can get into our skin with touching it. We don't have to necessarily ingest it orally, but it can get into our skin. So they're using things like that as well. So I think that being mindful of these kind of tactics that people are using, educating yourself on it, talking to other people. I think those are some of the best strategies that we can use as individuals to protect ourselves from it and to protect others.
Powerful information today. Thank you so very much,
Yes, ma'am.
Evangelist. And if you will, give us that human trafficking hotline if someone is a victim or feels like they've been victimized.
If someone feels as though they're victim or they're victimized, that number is 800-373-7888. Again, 800-373-7888. If there is a young lady or a woman or a young man who is involved in it and they're needing or wanting to be captured, it's simply texting be safe. So just text message be safe, and that gets you to the authorities, and that gets you to someone that can also help and assist as well. So those are the ways. But at any rate, you may not be able to dial 1-888, but you can dial 911, and that is going to be a quick way to get someone.
All right. I want to just say thank you, Evangelist, for that information on human trafficking. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're approaching the end of our show. Unfortunately, Queen Elizabeth II, she passed away at the age of 96. It's a sad note anytime someone leaves the earth and transition into another life. However, although the Queen has had a lot of good things said about her, most recently we've heard some bad things in the news. I don't know if you two ladies have heard any negative reaction from her death. Have you?
I have heard some. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I want to bring this up. You have not?
I haven't paid much attention to it.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Well, let me enlighten you a little bit. So, to my surprise, I mean, I don't study the history books like I should, I guess you could say. It's mentioned that the Queen was somewhat rooted in racism, which was surprising to me. Now, I'm not here to blemish her name or anything like that. I had no problems with the Queen, okay? But on social media, I saw several people, and some, well, one in particular, I don't want to call any names, that referred to her as, I don't want to say what it was, but I was surprised. So it made me look into it. This was stemmed at the fact that she was, or her legacy stems around colonialism and the domination of people of color in other countries. So I thought that was an interesting subject. Queen Elizabeth has been known to be a supporter of BLM, Black Lives Matter. And I've also seen her in photographs with other African Americans, even the Jackson 5 from back in the late 70s. Just wanted to get some feedback on that from you two. Let's start with Janet.
I actually don't have a lot of feedback on that,
Okay.
because I don't really keep up with her. But when I think about history as a whole and the age this lady was, and I mean, she's from England, and that was basically like the ruling country at the time that America had to get their independence from.
Mm-hmm.
This lady was coming up during a lot of that time, not the the beginning, but you know I'm sure she had a hand or a part in and experienced some of that. So um, I can't see her getting around it. You know,
Uh-huh.
um, yeah.
Okay.
I'm inclined to kind of feel, well, yeah, she probably had a hand in that.
All right. And Evangelist Douglas?
Yeah, just to echo what Janet said, when you consider her age and just the history there, I mean, she comes from a family of colonizers. I think that is something that we all know to be the case, and that's her history. They made a lot of money, off indigenous, individuals, and it's a fact. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we hear so much, in particular from, the African American population about her death. And it was amazing to see the differences and how some felt about her versus others. So that's just it. I think that her history, and it's evident that it was a lot of that was there prior to her, even her birth. But she obviously had some dealings and some of that stuff as well. I believe that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I wanted to say I believe maybe it changed later on, like I say, in life for her. But who knows? Anyway, I'm just going to say rest in peace.
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth
Absolutely.
II.
Yep.
All right. And I wanted to chit-chat a little bit also, as I mentioned earlier, on a very controversial subject. He, too, now is deceased, and that was Kevin Samuels. One night, Janet and I got into I want to say a little bit of a debate on who he was as a social media influencer. I don't even really remember all the details on it. I'm not sure if Janet does. But this man centered his conversation around relationship advice to women and to men. He stressed and believed that some women had unrealistically high standards in income for the types of men they felt they should be dating, while also calling out men for being poor or overweight. He also criticized the black community for failing to meet traditional values. He himself was a father and a twice divorcee. He died unexpectedly after complaining of chest pains with a woman who was in the apartment with him later on that evening. He was around 56 years old. It's unsure about what his true age was. But anyway, I was somewhat of a fan of Kevin Samuels, and I don't think Janet was, and I wanted to discuss that. But Janet, we're going to have to invite you back to the show, and maybe we'll do a Kevin Samuels show because we are running out of time. I want to say thank you for coming to the studio today and sharing with us and the Chat City audience, our listeners, on your profession, which I do find very interesting and very rewarding. So, again, thank you. And as I said, the great evangelist Tameka Douglas will be here with us each Thursday afternoon, shedding light on certain subjects and topics that she feels is very near and dear to her heart and just what's going on in everyday society. Thank you for listening to another show, Chat City with P. Ross, each Thursday at 5 p.m. here on Oak 93.5 FM WRLY Raleigh. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.